Hi, everybody. I'm Gina Powell, and I am the owner of Caring Transitions of Metro Houston. And what that means basically is I am a senior move manager. And senior move managers do a lot of different things, but generally we specialize in helping senior citizens when it's time for them to move. A lot of times they're coming from their primary home, and we are dealing with things as practical as what are they going to take, how are we going to get them there, how are we going to get them unpacked, and then what are we going to do with the things they did not take. So we deal largely with moves, estate sales, possibly auctions, depends on the situation. And then having donations picked up, shredding done, whatever it takes. Our goal is to get the house cleared out because everyone pretty much needs to sell the house to help continue paying for their care and just they're ready to do it. So that is largely what a senior move manager does. And I am going to go ahead and share. And I do have a PowerPoint. Let me get the right thing up really quickly.
I see there was a request to speak a little louder.
Oh, okay.
Reading the chat.
Can everybody see the PowerPoint? Yes? Okay. And if I need to speak up, just do this or something, okay? So I am going to talk about moving from the family home. Okay, this is going to include downsizing, estate sales, and the things you kind of need to think about before you're ready to turn it over to the realtor. Okay. So there's a lot of things you've got to think about. You need to think about the space planning for the new space, purging from the house you've got. Are you going to do estate sales, donations, auctions? You got to pack, move, unpack, resettle, sell the house. So there's just a lot of things to consider. So we're going to kind of walk through it, okay? So physically, you may think, how do I know when it might be time for me to downsize? Well, you're going to need to look at your physical health and often that of your spouse as well. So we're looking at things like, are they able, or are both of you able to safely move through your home? If not, it may be time to make some changes. Do you have the energy and the resources to maintain a large house that you're not really using all of? You've got to consider the mental well-being of the stress of moving is a stress, but also I find a lot that people living alone at home can be extremely isolated. So you've got a lot of issues with that as well. Another thought is, what are the financial considerations? You need to look at what it costs to stay in your home versus moving to possibly a senior community. I know a lot of people think their houses are paid off, but you have to look at the carrying cost of a house. What does it cost to maintain your insurance and your utilities and taxes? So that can be a lot more costly than you're really thinking of. What is your family situation? Do you have folks nearby who can help, or are you going to be a little on your own with this? And then lifestyle, do you still want to continue keeping up with a house? And it is hard to change, but I really find a lot of people do much better once they get where they can socialize. So those are just kind of the quick questions to ask yourself. So once you've kind of gone through that, where do you start? Okay, I'm going to talk here about the actual moving and downsizing, because this is what really seems to overwhelm people a lot. I think a lot of times people in their head would like to move, but when they start looking at what it's going to take, they give up. And it is very doable, okay? You've just got to understand what it is you've got to go through, and I will help you with that. So this is how I organize downsizing, okay? 6 steps. First one is you need to do this with a plan, okay? I call it bite-sized planning, because if you do not have a pretty detailed plan, if you just say, I'm going to pack the house, well, you're overwhelmed at the thought of having to pack the house. So what I actually do is bite-sized planning. So you're going to do little pieces as you move along. You need to determine the amount of space you're going to need in your new home. Okay, if you're moving into something like independent or assisted living, you may have the luxury of 1 to 3 bedrooms, depends on where you're going. If you're going into certainly something like memory care, much less space. But how much room do you need? You're going to need to decide that. Space planning, where are you going to put the things you want to keep? And I'll talk more about this in a minute, but that's very, very important. Purging, you've got to decide what you're going to do with everything in that house. Then you're going to pack and move and then resettle in your new house. So those are our starts. Bite-sized planning, separate all your tasks into something smaller. So say I need to pack the house. So what I'm looking for here is when people haven't done a lot of moving or haven't done it in a while, I have people tell me all the time, I've moved 20 times in my life. This is just, I know what I'm doing, or I thought I knew what I was doing. And now I'm completely overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. Well, yes, you have moved many times. You have almost always probably moved into larger houses, for one. So that is definitely a challenge. Most people think, I'm moving into this new house and I'm going to take everything I have with me, and then I get to add stuff too. And that is not necessarily how this works anymore. So this might be the first time you've ever had to deal with, getting rid of or deciding what you're going to keep and what am I going to do with all the things I don't want to keep, and maybe I save for my kids and I find out now they don't want to keep them either. So what am I going to do with all this kind of stuff? So if you're overwhelmed by the plan, break it into smaller tasks. If you haven't had to do it in a while and you're feeling overwhelmed, one thing I will tell people is start with kind of a small but a painful point for you. And a lot of times this is a closet. Okay. So start with your closet if you're feeling overwhelmed. And then you're going to say, I'm going to work on the left side of my closet, and I'm going to work on that for 20 minutes. And then I will give myself a break. You will find a lot of times once you start doing this, it gets easier. You start feeling like you can do it. You get accomplished, and it does help get you kind of in the mindset of starting. But don't start with the thought of, I've got to pack the house. I need to pack the right side of this closet, or I need to make decisions about the right side of this closet. So keep it manageable. Now, right sizing, we talk about downsizing, but I would actually say in our case, a lot of times it's actually right sizing as well. So you need to have the right amount of space you need to live. Most of us are living in houses that are much larger than we need, especially if it's us and our spouse at this point. You have a 2,500 square foot house and you probably are in 20% of it on a regular basis. So when you think of it that way, it's a little bit easier to realize what it is you actually need to live in. So determine what you need to live. You'll find it's probably a lot less. When you're taking stuff with you, you're going to, even though, like I've said, you've had these things for years and years, you need to decide not what you're living with yesterday, but what's going to be right for you moving forward. Quick example, I ask people, how much can I live? I move with me. Honestly, this is a pretty straightforward process. If you need to figure out, of course, what size you're going into. For example, if you're moving into 1,000 square foot apartment and you have a 3,000 square foot house, easy enough to see that you would be able to bring about a third of your belongings. I would say this depends too on how much you have. I find some people have a lot more than you should be fitting into a 3,000 square foot house. So one thing you need to consider is how much of your items you're going to take, but also did you have a reasonable amount to start with? Space planning, I am a huge proponent of space planning. This is actually the first thing I do on a project. And to space plan, what I am looking for, I need to identify a few things. Most importantly to me are the things you love, okay? The things you love are things you need to see every day. And if you're dealing with someone with some cognitive issues, it becomes even more important. So I'm walking around the house with them and or their family, and we are talking about the things that bring them joy, the things they want to see, the things that are touchstones for them. You know, is it a family picture? Is it a jewelry box your husband gave you? What is it that really brings you joy and keeps you present particularly? So those are the first things I identify that I've got to get in that house. So first we're looking for those. Our second things I'm looking for are practical things. You need a bed, a chair, a table, those kind of things depending upon the space. So I'm looking for things that keep you present, and then I'm looking for just practical items. And then we are looking for anything else we can fit in that you'd like. So I start off by digitizing the space plan. And then we measure every piece of furniture that you think you want to take, put it on the space plan, and we know whether or not it's going to fit. I don't want to take anything that's going to have to come back with the movers. It's going to cost more money. And I'm very careful about having wide open spaces. My belief is, yes, you may be ambulatory now, but for any reason in the future, you may end up with either being on a walker for a period of time or being in a wheelchair. So we need to plan your space so that you can move around it comfortably regardless of that situation. So we're giving plenty of room. We're putting the actual furniture on the floor plan, and then we can see what fits and what we need to adjust. And then if I have any space left, we go to that third category of things I would like to take if I have space. So a lot of times I may have, this wall space where I have 36 inches, and I can tell you, you said you like these 3 tables. We could get any of these 3 in this space. So which one do you prefer? So I'm helping people drive down what they're taking, but I also want to give them as much ability to choose, okay? As long as it fits within the space, I want them to be able to take it. So I don't tell them what to take. I'm just helping them figure out what will fit and what's most important to them. So space planning, very important. When you're thinking about what you're going to take with you, kind of things to bring, you need furnishings, home decorations, clothes. I would say limited kitchen items. This is where I see people tend to take much too much, especially if you're going somewhere where you're going to have meals included. Most senior communities fall into that category, and yet I see people wanting to bring roasting pans and 20 Pyrex bowls and things that I know they'll never use. Typically, I say bring about, if you're by yourself, 4 place settings is sufficient. Bring very basic things. Okay, of course, you need to bring the things you love and touchstones. We talked about that. Memorabilia. Again, this helps keep you grounded. A lot of times people have pictures all over their house. And if you're not going to have space for that, what we do is we take the photos out and go ahead and let the picture frames go, but keep the photos, put them in a memory album, take them with you. Bring the things you use regularly. So your electronics, books, definitely medications. Things to leave, and this is hard part for some folks. Any extra furniture, decorations, books, and definitely kitchen items. For me, anything you haven't used in the last year, and that's my statement. I actually try and do it in the last 6 months. But if you haven't used it in the last year, you probably can live without it. It's amazing how many times we dig into boxes and things in attics and people don't even remember they have them anymore. So these things are pretty easy to let go if you just stick to that thought. You won't need yard furniture. You may need limited outdoor furniture if you have a balcony or a patio, and then it's typically, a chair or 2 and a table. Again, making sure that you have plenty of space to move around out there. Of course, you don't paint, chemicals, you need very little cleaning supplies. You'll generally have someone who will come and clean for you. So just the bare minimum. Anything that's outdated electronics or worn clothes, they're going to be things we're going to generally toss. Now's the fun part. This is where people have their most difficulty. I call it the purging. So what are you going to do with all of these things, and how do you decide? So you're going to break as you're going to start with your sorting and organizing and deciding what you're going to do with everything, and you're going to have categories. Okay, break it into things you're going to keep, and that means things that are going to go with you to your new home. You may have things that you want friends or family to have, things that can be sold, things to be donated, and then things to be thrown out. So these are your categories you're thinking of while you're going through items. And what I try and follow and try and teach clients to follow is the Ohio rule. Ohio stands for only handle it once. When you pick up something and you make a decision, I'm going to keep this, I'm going to let this go, I think my son would like this, put it in a box, put it in a category, put a sticker on it, however it helps you. A lot of times we use little sticky notes, and yellow may be for the kids and blue may be it's going with me, but whatever works for you. Go through, do that. Be brutal, because you're going to find that you want to keep everything. And you can't. So be as brutal as you can. A lot of times it helps if you have a friend or a professional to kind of hold you to it and say, no, do you really need that third spatula? What are you going to do with 3 plastic spatulas? So sometimes that's helpful. Don't revisit your decisions. Once you've made it, you say it's for charity or whatever, and you put it in a bag and put it in the garage. Don't let yourself go sneak back in the garage over the weekend, drag the bag back out and look at it again. We had a lady we did once that we spent the better part of a day going through a closet because she had so much and she wanted to see everything. We felt like we had done a great job. Everything was settled. We went back on Monday and everything was back in the closet. So you definitely make your decision with the Ohio rule, only handle it once, and stick with your decision. Now, this is, if you can screenshot this or something, this is a very handy page, and I can certainly get it to Catherine. But it's 10 questions to ask yourself when you're decluttering. If you look to the right-hand side, you'll see where it says keep, give to family or friends, sell, donate, or trash. So when you're struggling, and some things will be easy to let go, some things you're going to keep, and then you're going to have this kind of large nebulous category where you're trying to decide. So questions to ask yourself. Is it something you use regularly? If it's not, are you keeping it because you truly love it? I would say if it's something you truly love, it needs to go with you. With the understanding, of course, you cannot love every single thing in your home. Are you keeping this out of obligation or expectation? I see this from time to time. For example, the neighbor gave it to you and the neighbor comes over to your house and you want to make sure that it's displayed so the neighbor knows that you enjoy it and you're using it. Anything you've kept out of obligation, this is the perfect time to let it go. Okay. So you're going to let it go. You could say, is it something family or friends might like? Do I want to sell it, donate it, or trash it, for example? Are you holding on to it because you think you should love it? It's a great painting. It just doesn't speak to you anymore. Or you've got 20 paintings and you can only take 10. So you're going to have to let it go. It's not one of the top 10 you love. Are you saving it just in case you think someday you're going to use it? No, you won't. Do you have multiples of the same thing? Again, see this a lot in kitchens, a lot. Take a saucepan or two, take 2 sizes of frying pans, take, a plastic spatula. We don't need multiples of the same thing. Do you have something else that could do the same thing? I see this from time to time. One of my favorites, are you holding on to something that you're going to fix? You haven't fixed it yet, you're not going to fix it now. So let's let it go. Is the item worth the time you spend on cleaning and storing it? Now, this is a personally hard category for me because this is going to embody pretty much all forms of silver. And I happen to love silver. But it takes a lot of energy to clean it and keep it nice looking. It certainly takes space to store serving units. So maybe at this point, are you actually going to use it? You know, keep a limited amount of the things, again, you truly love, but maybe this is something that can be passed down in the family. You probably will not be making major parties. You won't need the size of serving dishes and so forth you've had in the past. And the space that this is taking up, could you use it better for another item? So you've got to make some decisions. Quick list of things that can be donated, generally clothing in good condition, bed linens and towels. I will tell you, even if they're not in great condition, we donate those to dog shelters. They are thrilled with bedding, towels, pillows, all of that stuff goes pretty well. Furniture in good condition, pots, pans, utensils, tools and equipment, decor, electronics, sometimes if they're too antiquated, no. Books, sometimes they can be a challenge. Food can go to a food pantry generally if it's unopened and unexpired. It can be difficult to get rid of mattresses and box springs. The Houston Furniture Bank will pick them up for $25 a piece. So for example, if you have a king size bed, you're going to have a mattress and 2 twin size box springs. So you're going to have 3 pieces, so $75. You just need to get on their schedule. Unused health products, I usually just throw away because I don't know, even though they haven't been opened, I don't know their status. And old TVs, unless it's old enough to be an antique and you've got a special person who's wanting that, you're not going to find a taker for that. Cannot donate cribs and car seats, and nor can you sell them when we get to the estate sale. You do not, the regulations change so often on those items that it's very hard to know whether or not they are the latest and greatest, and generally they are not. So we do not sell them at all, and you can't donate weapons. So we're going to assume you got through all of your hard decision making. So from here, you've got to kind of deal with the pack and move. And this is where you need to think of a couple things. First, honestly, you need to evaluate your physical health and maybe your spouse's physical health as well. I know you've moved dozens of times, but you were younger when you did that. And it is physically, it can be very physically draining. I also tell people at this phase, I know you want to get a lot of stuff done yourself or you want to try. My warning or my little lecture is this is not the time to get hurt. It would be so easy to get yourself hurt by trying to overdo. So 1, pace yourself, and 2, we're going to bring in, or you can bring in movers. There are people who can move the heavy items. So be careful. When you're packing up, put a little bag aside that's got your essential items, things you're going to need for 24 hours. And of course, this should always have the medications. You need to make sure you're the person carrying any medications you're going to need. I don't put them on a truck at all. But you also need to have them ready for a 24-hour bag. You're going to have your meds. A change of clothes wouldn't hurt, just in case everything doesn't get unpacked so you can function. Toothbrush, toothpaste, comb, all those little things, handy to have in a little bag to go. Another moving tip, like I said, definitely use a space plan. When you're packing up boxes, mark what room it goes in, just as simple as that. The movers, then can put it in the right room, and that will save you from having to move it around to unpack it. So we're wanting to, if you're going to do some of this yourself, make it as easy on yourself physically as you can. Mark the boxes you want to unpack first in each room. For example, first thing we're going to do in a bedroom is make sure we get the bed made up. We're going to get the bed set up. We're going to get the nightstands organized, a clock, a bed. We may not have pictures on the wall by the end of the day. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And that's honestly because a lot of times people want to kind of live with their space before they decide about pictures. But make sure that in the kitchen, if what you're concerned about is making sure that you can have coffee in the morning, then you're going to have box number 1 for the kitchen is going to get your coffee, maybe a toaster, the things you need to kind of think the next morning. So that's what we're looking for there. Wardrobe boxes, they are my favorite box. They are very large. They are weird sizes, and they are great for all of those things that don't fit nicely into a regular box. Anything tall lamps, lampshades. Sometimes it's canes, walkers, anything odd size pictures. You can do a lot with them. So wardrobe boxes are my favorite box. Movers won't handle medications or firearms, so you'll need to make arrangements for them yourself. In terms of firearms, definitely ask if you're moving into a senior community. Those are not generally allowed, so you'll need to know that ahead of time. And here, real importantly, make special arrangements if you have anyone, if you or your spouse are moving with mobility issues, or if you have someone with some cognitive issues. Okay, this typically when we are doing a move, we have the clients take the day off. So this is a great day to go get your nails done, go to lunch, because when the movers come in, the house is already full of boxes. It's crowded. The movers move very quickly. So it's just easier to not have people there. It's safer. So this is a great day to not be there and to have a day to get ready. Sometimes our ladies get their hair done and their nails done because they're getting ready to meet a whole bunch of new people that night. So it's a nice plan. So then once you've got it all packed up, you made your decisions, you've got it all packed up, you've got it moved to the new house, then you've got to, we call it resettlement, but it's just unpacking. So we kind of talked about some of the things you're looking to focus on, but typically start with making sure the bedroom is functional. So you've got the bed set up, the bed made, the nightstands, the clock ready, the master bath, just basic things, any medications that you can get, make sure you can get your hands on them. Make sure that you've got the basic toiletries there. You can refine later. Kitchen, you're going to make sure that you've got, like I said, what you need for the immediate morning. And living room, make sure you have at least your chair that you use. And a lot of times I find that's a recliner. But if that's it, that you have that ready, and your nightstand. You may want to also remember to talk to the facility about how you go about getting your television hooked up, because a lot of times it can just be pretty much hooked up by the maintenance guy that works there. Or sometimes Xfinity or AT&T have to come out, but you'll need to schedule that. So if you're moving in on Wednesday, I would not have them plan on doing that on Wednesday. There's too many people moving around between the people who are unpacking and the movers. I'd have them come on Thursday, and they should be able to get it hooked up that same day. So a couple of resettling or unpacking tips. Make sure your movers set up and assemble your furniture. That's part of what they do. So make sure they do that before they leave. Make sure you have your essential bag on hand. Unpack your bedroom, make your beds, decide on your closet where you want things, unpack your bathroom, set up your kitchen. Another 2 important little things here is night lights, okay? I always put night lights throughout the new space. You are used to getting up in the middle of the night in the dark and going to the bathroom in your current home. You've done it thousands of times, but a lot of times when you move to a new environment, your pathway to the bathroom may change, and you're in an unfamiliar environment. You might also have some unpacked boxes around. So I put them in the between the bathroom and the bedroom, and I also make sure I have lighted the pathway to the kitchen, because people do get up in the middle of the night sometimes. So make sure you've got night lights everywhere. Another important thing I make sure of when I settle a bedroom is that I have a firm chair. It doesn't have to be big, but I'm looking for a firm chair for them to sit in and put on shoes, or if they get up too fast and get a little dizzy. A lot of times sitting on the side of the bed is not a good idea. It tends to collapse. So I'm looking for a firm bed. And when I say use mirror placement, I mean, if you're in your bathroom, if you're used to things being on the right-hand side, that's where you expect to find your medication or your toothbrush or whatever. Try and mirror the space as it was before, so people know where to find things. Okay, it helps. It's the same thing in the kitchen. If you want your glasses, or you're used to having your glasses to the right of your sink, go ahead and put them there again. It'll help make things easier when you try and get up the next day and start moving around, if you can find things where you're used to. Okay, so you moved. You have to deal with everything you didn't take, which is 2/3 of probably what you owned. So there's still a lot of stuff you have to do. And I do typically move people first, give them a couple of days to say, okay, I feel like I've gotten everything. I do think it helps with the stress when you know you have a couple of days, you can go back and decide, oh yes, I want to take that. I really do have space for that, or I found out I really need to see that. So give yourself a couple of days, go back, pick up those last minute things. And then if they haven't already, and you certainly could have done this before, but give friends and family a deadline. A drop dead, you have to have these items picked up by the state, or they're going to charity. Okay. Otherwise you will find this can drag out a long time. If you're interested in holding an estate sale or an auction, you need to find out first if your HOA will allow you to do that. Some will, some won't. Gated communities, I do not find allow that. So in this case with us, we couldn't do an estate sale in a gated community, so we may do an online auction. There are options, and I can give you more information on how that works. But basically, you need to decide when, if it's available. So if indeed you can do it in your neighborhood, then you need to decide if you think you can handle it yourself, or if you need a professional to handle it. If you want to do it yourself, you need to think about organizing. You're going to have to organize and stage and price all the items. You have to figure out the traffic flow through your house. How are you going to handle payments, credit cards, checks, cash? Most people don't have a mechanism for accepting credit cards. I do not ever accept checks. So you may be down to just cash. So you've got to think, how many people do you need to help? How do you handle security? Who's responsible for packing and loading the items? And I think this is the hardest part. And this is why I probably wouldn't recommend most people to do it. But are you comfortable with having strangers walk through your house, pick up your items, and then try and haggle with you for a lesser price? It's hard to see people go through your house. When I have estate sales, I do not have owners at my estate sales. One, it kind of puts off buyers. I think they feel a little bad. And then two, it's painful to watch people take your stuff. So, okay, so after you've decided about an estate sale or auction, or you've had it, you will have items left over. You generally do not sell 100%. So these can be added to what you had planned on donating. So you can call any number of donation or charities, and they will come pick them up. Generally, it will take about 2 weeks to get on their schedule. Most of them pick up per area of town based upon zip codes. So if I'm in the Southwest, for example, this charity may only pick up, I happen to be, for example, in 77007. Well, they only pick up this zip code on Wednesdays. So you're going to have to give yourself some lead time for that. If you still have things that are not donation worthy, you may need to have a trash hauling service come in and just remove the remainder of things that won't fit in your, typical trash. If you need shredding companies are very reasonably priced for the amount of work they save you. I do not recommend people go on a shredding binge when they move. A lot of times, one, you're going to burn out that little bitty shredder you've got. So shredding companies, for example, they'll bring in something similar to the size, a little bit smaller than a Houston, city of Houston trash can. I can fill that up for about $75, and you can get a lot in those things. So it's very cost effective, and you're not hauling really heavy papers around. So your goal is to get that house cleared out, and that's our goal. So once you have moved and you've done, let family pick up what they want, you've had whatever form of sale you want, you've had your donations picked up, shredding if appropriate, and trash, then your house is empty, and that's the point that you go to the realtor. You've probably spoken to a realtor way before this, and I do recommend, if possible, to use a SRES, which is a senior real estate specialist. This is a realtor who has specific training in working with the senior market. So they are knowledgeable, and they're also familiar with dealing with anyone who might have some cognitive issues. So it's they've got some training specifically in this group. But that's it. I know it sounds like a whole lot, and it is, but it is doable. It is much more doable with a professional, so you can kind of just stand back, but it'll be okay. That's it.
Excuse me, what was the senior real estate?
SRES. And you will find that on their business cards. Generally, if you have that, it's a specialization in real estate. They'll have it on their card.
So it's senior real estate. What was the last?
Specialist.
Oh, specialist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Gina, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. Great information. Put your contact information. There you go. Okay, you've got the last screen there with her contact information. You might also want to drop it in the chat
Yes.
so people can just copy and paste and put it into a document for themselves. But I highly recommend reaching out to Gina. I wish I would have had a Gina many years ago when I had to go through a process with my mother-in-law for a quick move. So yeah, and planning ahead. So that's what I'm doing at this point. Thanks, Gina. We really appreciate it.